and welcome back to another studio vlog where I will be continuing to work on items for the fireplace room. I might have mentioned it in the last studio vlog, but making this little chair that's going to go in the corner of the room is my next project for this piece. And of course, I can't do anything simply. I can't just make one chair. I have 4 different chair patterns cut out here. One of them is the very comfy looking chair, the overstuffed chair, similar to what I made for Queen City Minis. And then the other one is going to be a fancier chair with arms that look a little bit more carved. And I'm going to make both of these styles in 1/12 scale and 1/24 scale. I've done a little bit of troubleshooting with my patrons and YouTube members. They've kind of helped me think through some things. So I do think I am pretty close to finishing up these kits, but I have never put them together in 1/24 scale. So I'm going to be working on that today. So I hope you enjoy this little working vlog and can see some of the behind the scene things I do for my store. I think I'm going to start with the overstuffed comfy chair, similar to the one I made for Queen City Minis, because that was the original chair that a lot of people liked and were interested in the kit for. And that's the one I've previously put together, so let's get started on that one. There's lots of upholstery to do today. All right, here we go. Just put it back there for a second. I did make an entire instructional video over these kits. I was recording it during this vlog, so that's why I'm going to add in a few clips here. But if you do want to see the entire process, even if you aren't interested in purchasing the kits themselves, they do give you some upholstery tips and techniques. So if you do want to watch those, I will put them in the description box below, where you can see the full process from start to finish for each chair. So I have been at this chair for a couple hours now, and I'm about to get to, well, I've already partially started the upholstery part. But what I'm trying to do right now is to actually think through this, make the most logical path forward for someone else to do this kit. So when I'm just doing something on my own, if I don't like the order I do something in, I can rip it off or I can start over. But when I'm creating a kit, I want to make sure that the kit is the most successful it can be the very first time. So I'm having to just carefully think, what should the next step be? What makes the most sense? I'm also trying to keep fairly neutral colors. So I have a gray upholstery for this one. And then for the fancy version, which is going to go into my fireplace room, I have this more ornate fabric. You can take a closer look when I get to the fancy chair, but it has like some pigeons or I don't know, some kind of fancy bird on it, and I thought that would go really well for the adventurer room, which is what I want to create the fireplace room into. So I'm trying to think ahead if this is a display model on my table or possibly will go into a future display. I want it to be fairly neutral. I've also put together the little half-scale chair. It is so tiny. So this is the first time I've put together this size. It is the exact same pattern as this one. So I'm just trying to make them look similar, but in very different sizes. I have finished the chairs. They are upholstered. Both the 1/12 scale and the 1/24 scale. And I'm pretty happy with how they came out, honestly. So that's good. This is what the inside skeleton looks like. And then it has fabric over it. So I think that's pretty good for a cardboard chair. I was filming and taking notes as I put it together, so hopefully it'll be pretty easy to write the directions for that and make those easy to follow. So that was just the version that I'm calling the comfy chair. I also need to create the fancy chair, which has more ornate carved arms. But I may be starting that tomorrow because it's getting later in the day, and honestly, upholstery is a little bit tiring. It's fun, but it can be exhausting doing every single step and trying to make sure that you don't get glue on anything, that you cut it the right way. Anyway. So we'll be starting this one tomorrow. The next morning, I was up and ready to get started on the fancy chair kit. I was especially excited about this one because of the ornate arms. Again, I'm going to kind of fast forward through the process of putting this chair together. This one I had to be especially careful with because I was trying to line up the pattern so that the birds were facing on the front and everything was centered. That was a little bit trickier than the other chair, but I am very happy with my centering job. Well, on the front I am. On the back it did get a little wonky, but it's the back, so I'm not too worried. I have finished up the chairs. I'm really happy with how they're looking. I have my fancy chair with the fancy carved arms and legs, and then I have my original chair, which is more the comfy style with the big fluffy arms, like that you would want to curl up in a book and read in. I also made their 1/24 scale little counterparts, and I have found that I need to work on the 1/12 scale and the 1/24 scale kits at the same time, or when I get to the end of the 1/12 scale kit, I run out of steam. And I have no interest or want to work on any other part of this kit or any other version of this kit. And so it ends up being a long time until I kind of regain that excitement into a certain kit before I'm able to work on the 1/24. So working on these at the same time, I think, is going to be the thing I need to do going forward. It takes a little bit more time in the process. However, then I have the 1/24 scale version coming out at the same time as the 1/12 scale. And then the people who enjoy my kits and purchase from my store don't have to sit there and wait for me to regain my excitement for a certain kit. This chair specifically has been created to go into the Fireplace room box, which is supposed to be like an adventurer's type office. Now that I have this chair done, I really feel like it is time to start putting together the room. Coincidentally, I am currently working on a wallpaper video, and if you're watching this vlog, the wallpaper video will have come out before this video, so I will link it down below if you missed it. I am doing extensive testing, probably a little bit too much testing on different types of wallpaper glue specifically, so that I can find the perfect combination or the perfect glue to help me do the perfect wallpapering job. And wallpapering a cardboard room is going to be a good test of that, simply because cardboard, it has its own opinions about things. It likes to dimple and warp, so if I can use the products that I found that I liked and get a good result, I feel like it would speak really well for the glue that I chose. And I am starting from scratch. I'm not going to use my previously built fireplace room because I like to have an empty room on my table. I feel like people are able to envision their own plans, their own room, their own style in there when I don't have anything in there. So it really caters to two different types of people. The people who want to see a room set up, they want to see the possibilities, and then people who really kind of want to make up their own ideas, make up their own quest, they want to see the empty one, and then other people want to see the full one. So I'm going to build from scratch so that I can wallpaper effectively, and we'll go on this journey together. I was very excited to get started on this kit. I have never finished out one of these fireplace rooms before. I've built it several times for instructional purposes and putting together a sample, but I've never actually finished it. I have taken these clips that you're seeing now from my wallpaper glue video. That's where I started this project. So if you do want to see more detailed information about how I put the wallpaper in, you can check out that video. I will link it down in the description box, just like I linked the chair instructional videos. So this is just kind of a hodgepodge of the behind the scenes of all my videos this month. I just uploaded the wallpaper video yesterday and people seemed to like it. They enjoyed the conclusions I came to. I may have found some other glues that they I can't talk. And may have found some other glues that they themselves are interested in. To be honest, the glue video was a lot of talking. It was an hour of talking about glue. I'm now working on the instructional video for these little chairs that I showed you that I was working on. And I got through one video. I have to make a total of two. One for this chair, one for this chair. And I can't talk. I can't talk anymore. My plan now is to stop talking and I'm going to pick up where See? I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to pick up where I stopped on this project. So if you don't plan on watching the wallpaper video, all I did was add this red wallpaper, put in this back wall and some bookcases, and I didn't even show the process of the bookcases. So you should now be all caught up on what I'm doing here. I am just gonna zip it. I'm done, and I'm gonna do some actual creating and just give my voice a rest. Although I'm sure I'll do a voiceover through this part eventually, down the road, when I edit, not today. Editing era here, and I am indeed going to be doing a voiceover. I've had enough time between the previous videos, and now that I feel like I can handle it. I sat down and was immediately distracted by these other miniatures that I have selected to go in this room. I plan for this room to be a display on my sales table when I go to miniature shows, and this wall safe really hasn't had a home, so I want to add it into the room. I thought originally I was going to rebuild it and just repaint the whole thing, and then I was like, why can't I just repaint the one that I've already built? Originally it was this bluish silvery color. It was just a very cool tone. And I knew it wasn't going to match with the warmth I want to create within the room. To do this, I did a base coat of red and then a top coat of metallic gold. The metallic paints are typically somewhat transparent, so it will pick up the tones that are underneath. This is going to make for a very warm colored little safe. I also aged it, as you can see, so it looks like it's maybe been sitting in the room for a long time. And now it's much more warm. I feel like it's fitting with the vibe of the room a lot better. I also wanted to add in this little trunk. It is already a warm tone, but it doesn't feel like it's had enough life experience, I guess I would say. So I did my favorite technique of aging it just with some basic watered down black paint. I did this very carefully because it is a paper kit, but now it looks like it has a bit more age to it, which I do plan to age this room. So now that I've gotten past my distraction with the small miniatures that are going to sit inside, let's actually work on the room itself. Now, I do have another video. I know I'm just sending you to videos all across my channels. I do have an instructional video over this room box as well if you want to see every single step, but it only shows you how to create the bare cardboard room. It doesn't show you how to add any finishes. So this was a new experience for me as well. There have been so many people who have created this kit before me and done amazingly beautiful jobs. And I do have a customer gallery on my website where you can go see how other people have decorated this room. So this was an exciting moment for me, and I just can't wait to see how it ends up looking. This is called the Fireplace room for a reason. It has a gigantic fireplace in the center between the two bookcases, and it does come with the pieces to create the surround that goes around the fireplace opening. It is all cardboard, and I do show you how you can cover up the edges. And if you've never worked with a laser cut kit before, it does come with quite a bit of ash, so you do have to wash your hands quite often. But the whole kit does come together fairly quickly if you're just building it. If you're trying to do all the individual finishes, then it takes a little bit longer. There are some beams that go across the center, and these columns are what hold up the beams. I wanted all of my window trims, my mantelpiece, my columns to have a rough wood finish because this is going to be an adventurer's room. I wanted some kind of timber in there, and I do plan to do this on the beams that go over the entire space as well. So the first thing I'm doing is laying down some lightweight spackling. This is going to fill in any gaps and it's going to help avoid dimpling in the cardboard. I did this for the window trims, the columns, and around the fireplace mantle. To get the wood grain effect, I'm going to use a paint that holds its shape. I'm using Arteza Outdoor Acrylics. I got these a long time ago, so I don't know if they're still the same formula, but the ones I have are very similar to fabric paint, which means wherever I put it, it is going to dry in that shape. So I'm laying down this color. It's not going to be the final color. It's just a color that I don't use very often. I am using an acid brush because it's a very wiry bristle, and I'm going to drag it through the paint so it has these little wood textures on it. It makes the pieces look like a rough cut of timber. Once I'm happy with my textures, I'm going to go over everything with that brown paint that you see on the bookcases. Now you probably are going to get a little sick of this brown paint because it is going to be everywhere at the beginning, but I will start diversifying my browns a little later in the project. At this point, I wanted to work on some wainscoting. I originally planned wainscoting, which is why there's not wallpaper all the way down the walls on the sides, and I wanted to try out Yes Paste for this purpose. One of the qualities that I found in this glue during my wallpaper glue video was that it takes quite a while to dry, so you have a lot of working time. In the past, when I made something repetitive like this wainscoting, I would have to add glue to each individual piece because otherwise the glue would dry too quickly as I was putting the wainscoting together. The Yes Paste had a much longer gluing time, although I will say it was a little bit more difficult to paint over. I had to do a few more coats because the Yes Paste at times would resist the acrylic paint. However, this is kind of a not so great paint. It's not a great quality, it's very thin, so it could be easier to cover the Yes Paste with a thicker, more high quality paint. I started installing the wainscoting one section at a time. The only difficult part was getting the right shape that goes over the edge of the stairs, but I just made a very simple pattern with some paper and cut out the shape, and it fit pretty well. I am going to be adding trim to the very top of the wainscoting towards the end of the project. But now I want to focus on the fireplace itself. It has to be kind of the center focus. I mean, it is the center focus of the room, so I really want to do my best to create some interesting textures and to paint it in a really attractive way, I hope. I want to do large stones. Part of this is because I just know it will take forever if I do smaller stones. I do like the look of big stones, especially since this is a huge fireplace. I think it gives it that grand feeling. So I'm using some cereal box material. Thank you. I had a friend send me a package of pre-cut cereal box material, so thank you so much for that. I sanded the waxy side so it would stick really well, and then I glued each piece one at a time onto the cardboard surface. I also needed to cover the little steps at the base of the fireplace, so I cut somewhat brick-sized pieces. They're not exactly in scale, and those are going to be folded over the stairs to cover that bit of cardboard. This process was even more tedious than the large stones that filled up the large space, so I'm very glad I didn't try to do these small stones all over everything, but of course I think it would look cool with the small stones as well. But here's how my piece finished up. I was already liking the look, but I thought it would look even better with some grout. To create the grout, I'm going to be using lightweight spackling, which seems to be one of my just favorite materials. It seems to help in so many situations. I'm first protecting my wallpaper and all my painted surfaces with some sticky notes, and then I am laying the lightweight spackling onto the surface and using a palette knife to push it into the cracks and smooth it over the chipboard. Now it is going to be a little messy here and there. I'm okay if it gives some texture to my stones, and I'm pressing pretty hard because I do want it, I still want to be able to see the outlines of the stones. I'm going to do the same thing for the steps. I'm pushing hard so that you can still see the texture. I don't want to erase everything I did with the cereal boxes. It's been a few days of working on and off on this fireplace room, and I'm actually really excited with how the stone came out on the fireplace. I am excited to paint it today. It was one of those mental hurdles that I had a hard time getting over because I knew it would be a lot of individually placing stone pieces, which is actually just cereal box material. But I got that done, and I do think I want to go ahead and paint it before I lay the floor down, because then I won't have to worry about if I get paint on the floor area. I want to create some interesting textures on the stone before I paint it. I was thinking about this last night while I was supposed to be trying to fall asleep. So I want to see if it'll work, and then we'll move on to the flooring. After everything had dried thoroughly, I hit any high spots from the spackling with some sandpaper just to knock off any extra bits. I just don't want any lumps in my paintwork. I did this for the stairs as well. And I know I've mentioned these before, but a keyboard vacuum is so helpful when working in rooms like this. They're so small and they get into the smallest spaces in your projects and can suck up any of that dust or extra bits that you don't want showing in your project. I will link my keyboard vacuum down below. To create the texture I was wanting for the stone, I'm going to use Mod Podge just on top of the stone pieces. This is going to differentiate my stone from my grout, or at least this is what I was hoping at the time I was doing this. I had never done this exact process before. Once the Mod Podge had dried, I started to add a layer of that same brown paint. You will start to be able to see the difference between the areas where I had the Mod Podge and the areas where it is only the lightweight spackling. It does start to look like grout. It soaks up the paint more than the stones. And I just really enjoy playing around with textures like this. It's just like a grand experiment, this whole art form of creating miniatures. It's like, how realistic can I get things to look, and how much detail can I put into a certain idea? So this was a lot of layering and a lot of time, but I think it was worth it in the end. You'll have to let me know. Now, I do not want to have a brown fireplace, so what I've decided to do is to use a gray paint, but I first mixed in some of the brown to make it a warm gray, which should work better with the rest of my room. And right after I laid down the wet gray paint, I went over it and dappled some of that brown on top of the gray. So my hope is that this will look like a stone that has multi-colors, and the brown color in the stone matches with the rest of the room and matches with the grout that we previously laid down. Now, this wasn't a perfect process. I did have to go back and clean up some areas, but I do like the effect. I haven't tried anything exactly like this before, so I will say this was a successful experiment. After all of the gray paint has dried, I was going over it, yes, once again, with the Mod Podge. I kind of missed the shine that Mod Podge gave each stone, so I'm going over that, and as I finish each stone, I am just kind of bumping the brush up and down on top to give it a little bit more texture. After everything had dried, again, I am going to age it with some watered down acrylic paint. I'm not too worried about using watered down paint at this point because there are so many layers on this cardboard. I'm not worried about it warping because all of this watered down paint is sitting on the surface that I have created. At this time, I also decided to age the built-in bookcases at the back of the room. I will possibly do some more aging down the road, but for now I wanted to see what it would look like on top of all of these bright brown surfaces that I first painted. And then of course I put a fan on it overnight so that everything could completely dry. Especially when I'm working with paper products like cardboard, I want to make sure nothing has the chance to get too damp or moldy in any way. The next day's focus was all about the floor. So the first thing I did was create a pattern out of scraps of paper, and then I'm going to cut it out of a piece of poster board. When I went to fit it back into my room, I realized that there were too many angles, too many columns for me to get it in as one large piece. So I decided to cut it into 3 individual pieces, and this does mean that I'm going to have the floorboards of my floor going vertically as compared to the fireplace, so that I can easily disguise the connection points between the 3 pieces of flooring. I'm following the same steps that I did with the wainscoting, and I'm again using the Yes paste, so I have a long working time when it comes to my floor. I'm cutting off any excess pieces and being very careful with lining up the edges. If I have any overhanging bits at all, my floor may not fit back into the space. One benefit of creating the floor outside of the room is that I can pre-paint everything, and if there is any warping on my poster board, I can flatten it back out when I add it into my room, and I don't have to worry about it warping afterward. I also don't have to worry about getting paint on the walls, which I'm a little clumsy when it comes to painting, as you can tell by my desk mat. So this is another huge benefit. I do want to lighten the floor a little bit, which I do contradict later when I age it. However, I'm using a bit of a cream colored paint to go over the top to make it look like the floor is a bit older. I've never installed a floor with Yes paste, but if it works for wallpaper, I'm hoping it works for flooring as well. I am going to add a little bit of insurance by going around the edge with some acetone glue. This is Beacon's 3-in-1 glue, and it's just going to help make sure that the edges are down, and hopefully the Yes paste in the center takes hold. The only reason I'm concerned that this might be different than wallpaper is because this is basically 2 layers of poster board, which is a lot thicker. But so far, I'm pretty happy with the installation. I'm glad that I can lay down the Yes paste. I don't have to hurry because it's starting to dry, and I can just carefully put my floor down without having to worry that either the glue has already dried or I didn't get it all over the place. I can really just take my time. So I installed the floor. Here's how it's looking. Hopefully the seams are hidden enough, and I'm just going to let everything dry in place. Once it's dry, I can age it with some watered down paint, some black paint, just like I did for the fireplace. I imagine soot coming out of the fireplace for years and years and just covering the floor. I also decided to warm up the floor a little bit to match the rest of the wood in the room. So I watered down some of the paint that I used for all the trim, and I'm just going to lightly brush that on top of the floor as well. So now it's kind of a mess of all sorts of different brown colors. I realize it's kind of hard to see because it's still wet, and some of the parts were kind of resisted the paint, but I really like the look that it's giving. So I'm going to let this all dry, and then I can work on my final touches. The area where the floor meets the edge of the fireplace is a little rough. You can kind of see where the poster board is cut, so I decided to fill it in with some lightweight spackling. I just put it into a small bag and cut the corner. I typically keep one of these bags of spackling just around my work surface. It's so easy to pull it out and fill in any gaps in my projects. I also put it along the wallpaper connection because there was just a tiny gap there, and I wanted to fill it in and make sure everything was really connected. Once the lightweight spackling is dry, I'm just using some watered down paint to color it. It soaks up the paint really well, so it's easy to do without making a huge mess. And now for the part I was dreading, adding trim. I'm not the biggest fan of adding trim into any project, but this was going to be a little bit more difficult because of all of the columns that bump out into the space. I used a square dowel and painted that the same color as the wainscoting for the top of the wainscoting to finish it. For the connection between the floor and the wall, I'm using some mat board. In places where it's going around the columns, it's just going to be one piece of mat board that's very flat, and then it's a double piece that is going against the wall. And It may look kind of complicated. I don't know why I did it that way. It was easier to go around the columns in that manner. I just had to go back and touch up the ends with a little bit of paint because where I cut the mat board, you could see the white edge of the mat board. So here is the finished pieces of trim in place. They are just a little bit too bright and new, so I am going to use some chalk pastel. Chalk pastel is a great way to add subtle aging. It can be a little bit messy, as you can see here. And if you want to protect your lungs, definitely wear a face mask because it can just kind of float in the air, as you can see in my video. I started using a light brown, but it really just blended into my wallpaper. So I went back to black chalk pastel, and I really just want it to look like soot and dirt, and everything from all the travels had kind of settled in maybe around the top of the bookcases, the top of the window frame, in any areas where dust and grime would collect. Again, I'm using my keyboard vacuum to go around and get any excess chalk pastel off of my project. I just have to make sure to wipe down the bristles on the vacuum after I do this so that I don't accidentally smear chalk pastel over a project in the future. This is where I'm going to wrap up the fireplace room project for now. So there's going to be a part 2, hopefully in a future vlog, where I'm going to work on the exterior and also the ceiling beams that go at the top. As you can see, I already placed in the fireplace logs, and I will put the furniture back inside, the ones that I worked on at the beginning of this video. Still not quite sure where everything is going to sit in the room once the room is finished, but I do feel like it's looking a lot more harmonious now that I've painted over some of the smaller miniatures and I've worked on the room. I can see it now. The chairs that I was working on designing at the beginning of this video are now for sale in my store, and I think by the time this video goes up, there will only be a couple days left before I close my store down for the month. But don't worry, it will open back up again on the 1st of the next month. I always open it up on the 1st. Feel free to head over there and check out the kits that are available. Of course, there are the 4 kits that I mentioned earlier, the fancy chair, the comfy chair, and each of those I made in 1/24 scale as well. And recently I released the first 1/48 scale kit in my store, which was designed by another designer, which is really exciting. So there's lots of stuff in there. Go check it out. I'm not always the best about advertising my store, so I'm trying to get a little better at it. And if you enjoyed watching me put together this cardboard room, I do know of a couple other channels that have put together my cardboard kits. One of them is Tiny Keyhole Minis. Jolene used my 2 retro rooms room box to create the hotel room scene, the really scary one from The Shining. And Queen City Minis is currently working on this same kit and adjusting it to create the Gryffindor common room. I will put links to their channels and the first video in the series of their projects that they're working on in the description box below. This was supposed to be a vlog. It ended up just being clips of me working on this project, but I do have more of a vlog style vlog coming up because I need to completely redo the shelving in my studio where I create all the kits, where the laser cutter is. I'm running out of storage space, and I just bought some shelving that I need to put up and just fix everything because it's a mess. I don't know quite when I'll be getting to it, but that is going to be the focus of our next vlog, and I will be working on this. Lots to do. Oh, and I also need to get back to Beetlejuice. I got lots to do there too. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Come here. Come here. Come on.
Come on. What are you doing? Bella. Must I come to you? You didn't come when I called you. Okay.